Silicon-based life forms. What kind of beings are more advanced than humans? Welcome to the Eye of Truth. Since the flourishing of modern civilization, we humans have been exploring the existence of extraterrestrial life for nearly 100 years, but ultimately, we have not discovered anything yet. One reason for this is that we always search for extraterrestrial life based on the form of terrestrial life. However, we should also consider the possibility that life forms that may exist somewhere in the universe could be so different from us that we cannot even recognize them as life forms. In the previous searches, we had two criteria. One is the commonality of life forms such as growth, reproduction, response to stimulation, and evolution. The other is whether the environment of the star is suitable for the birth and existence of carbon-based life forms. The first criterion is easy to imagine, but a little explanation may be needed for the second criterion. All organisms on Earth are composed of complex molecules based on the chemical element carbon. Such organisms are called carbon-based life forms. When humans explore extraterrestrial life, it was also assumed that all extraterrestrial life forms are carbon-based life forms. However, recently, there have been many voices saying that we should remove this second criterion. To put it fundamentally, when searching for extraterrestrial life, we need to redefine what we should be looking for. The reason for this is that it is believed that elements other than carbon, such as silicon, can also form life. Such life forms are called silicon-based life. It is speculated that silicon-based life forms are superior to us carbon-based life in every aspect, and their civilization is also expected to be highly developed. However, even if we hear about silicon-based life, we cannot imagine them at all. What do silicon-based life forms look like? And what kind of environment do they live in? How are they different from us? Why is it estimated that their civilization is more advanced than Earth's civilization? This time, I would like to talk about silicon-based life forms. Please stay with me until the end. First of all, let's address the question of why, despite there being 118 known elements, there are only carbon-based life forms on Earth. Carbon-based life forms are made up of fundamental units that are all carbon-based. For example, the basic units of genetic material such as DNA and RNA, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, as well as the bones, organs, skin, and hair they form, are all carbon-based. This is not just a coincidence, and there are several reasons for it. First, carbon atoms can form 4 bonds. In other words, carbon has 4 hands with which it can form stable, complex large molecules by clasping hands with neighboring elements. These diverse molecules, formed by a large number of such units, perform all the functions necessary for life phenomena. Another important point to note is that these carbon-based molecules readily bond with other chemicals. Rapid chemical reactions resulting from these bonds can supply energy for all biological activities, which is a very useful feature for living organisms. From this discussion, we can conclude that carbon is an excellent element for constructing the fundamental units of life, as it strikes a balance between stability and reactivity. Are there any other elements like this? Researchers searching the periodic table have identified silicon, which is in the same group as carbon. Silicon, like carbon, has 4 hands and can form diverse, complex molecules with chain or ring structures, and also readily undergoes chemical reactions. From these characteristics, silicon seems to be an ideal element for constructing life forms, just like carbon. However, even if silicon-based life forms exist somewhere in the universe, they could not be born or exist on Earth. This is because the Earth's environment is essentially hellish for silicon-based life forms. First, most silicon-based compounds react with water. This means that if a silicon-based life were to get wet from rain or fall into a river on Earth, its body would quickly dissolve. Secondly, silicon reacts readily with oxygen, producing silicon dioxide, which is the main component of sand. Sand, without any special intervention, remains as it is in nature and does not revert to silicon. Therefore, silicon on Earth has no chance to form life, as it reacts with oxygen to become sand. This is the reason why silicon-based life cannot be born or exist on Earth. Some people conclude that the existence of silicon-based life forms is impossible based on this fact, but that is a bit hasty. In fact, even on Earth, which is hell for silicon-based life forms, there exists a semi-silicon-based life form called diatoms. Diatoms are microorganisms that primarily inhabit freshwater and seawater environments. As you can see from the images, they have very beautiful and complex patterns. There are no other organisms on Earth with hexagonal, quadrilateral, or radial shapes like diatoms. The reason they have such unique shapes is that their cell walls are made of silicon-based compounds called silicic acid, or silica. Silicic acid is mainly used as a raw material for manufacturing glass and ceramics in human society. Diatom cell walls, made of components similar to those materials, boast higher durability and stability than the cell walls of ordinary carbon-based life forms, providing stronger protection for the contents within the cells. However, everything inside diatom cells is carbon-based, just like other Earth organisms. Therefore, diatoms are not silicon-based life forms, but rather semi-silicon-based life forms, if we must label them. Nevertheless, the existence of these organisms has significantly increased the possibility that silicon-based life could exist. If there is a planet somewhere in the universe with perfect living conditions for silicon-based life, given that semi-silicon-based life forms can live even on Earth, which is hell for silicon-based life forms, it is entirely plausible that silicon-based life forms could exist there. Now, let's consider what kind of environment would allow silicon-based life forms to be born, what their appearance might be like, and how they might live. First, regarding the environment that silicon-based life forms would prefer, as mentioned earlier, we must focus on the fact that oxygen and water are detrimental to silicon-based life. As a primary prerequisite, an environment without oxygen and water would be ideal. In such an environment, silicon-based life might use nitrogen or gaseous sulfur for respiration. In either case, the temperature of the planet must be several hundred degrees. This is because silicon has low reactivity with nitrogen or sulfur at lower temperatures. Instead of water, silicon-based life forms might use liquid ethane or methane as solvents for chemical reactions. However, to maintain ethane or methane in a liquid state even in high-temperature environments, the atmospheric pressure must be significantly higher than on Earth. Such an environment without oxygen and water, with temperatures reaching several hundred degrees and extremely high atmospheric pressure, which would be hellish for humans, would be a comfortable paradise for silicon-based life forms. Next, let's speculate on their appearance in such an environment. Other stories featuring silicon-based life forms often mention images of living stones or moving crystals, but these perceptions might be due to incorrect biases. This is because, although carbon-based life forms like us have complex shapes that are entirely different from diamonds or graphite made of single carbon atoms, it is difficult to imagine that silicon-based life forms would have such simplistic forms. Therefore, let's try to more thoroughly speculate on their appearance by referencing our own situation. Appearance depends on the stage of evolution of the life form at a given time, but advanced silicon-based life forms may have a more complex structure than humans. Their bodies are composed of heat-resistant compounds such as silicon, silicates, or crystalline silicon structures, and can remain stable at temperatures of several hundred degrees. If they are still evolving, they may have protective structures such as very hard scales or sharp spines to protect themselves from environmental hazards. To withstand high-pressure environments, they have a more compact and sturdy body structure with short, thick, and heavily reinforced skeletal structures. Their sensory organs also differ significantly from those of humans. For example, to adapt to high-pressure environments, silicon-based life forms have organs that sense changes in atmospheric pressure. This allows them to quickly respond to changes in their environment. Also, to cope with temperature changes, they have infrared vision or highly sensitive skin that can detect heat. As for the respiratory system, a completely different structure from gills or tracheae found in Earth-based life forms is observed in order to live in high-temperature and high-pressure environments. Regarding energy acquisition, it is possible that there is a food chain with predators and prey relationships like Earth-based life, but it is also conceivable that an ecosystem exists in which all species obtain energy through chemotrophic means. The metabolism of silicon-based life form cells is slower than that of carbon-based life forms, which could result in slower cell degradation and a potentially longer lifespan. However, In return, their growth is very slow, and it takes a long time to reach adulthood. If they have acquired advanced intelligence during the course of evolution, long-lived silicon-based life forms can accumulate vast amounts of knowledge and experience during their lifetime. This would endow them with the potential to build more advanced civilizations than carbon-based life forms like us. Furthermore, silicon-based life forms are inherently highly resistant to radiation. This means they have bodies well suited for space travel and space colonization. As you can see, if silicon-based life forms like the ones in this simulation truly exist, it is possible that there may be life on planets that we have overlooked, thinking that the birth of life was impossible. If that's the case, traces of life should be left in various parts of the universe. However, in reality, we have been exploring space for nearly 100 years and have not found anything. The reason for this is that we have been focusing on searching for life based on the mechanisms of Earth's carbon-based life forms. I believe that this way of thinking is one of the reasons why we have not yet been able to find extraterrestrial life. If we search for extraterrestrial life with the assumption or constraint that extraterrestrial life must exist in a form similar to Earth life, the range of possibilities will inevitably become narrower. The Fermi paradox, which we have dealt with before, pinpoints this contradiction. The Fermi paradox was proposed by genius physicist Enrico Fermi. It simply states that, no matter how you think about it, there should be life forms and civilizations all over the universe, yet not a single one has been found. There are many theories trying to rationally explain this contradiction, and one of them is that we cannot perceive life forms that are different from ourselves. The different form mentioned here means more than just the difference between carbon-based life forms and silicon-based life forms. To get a clue as to how different they are, first, I would like you to listen to Elon Musk's profound statement on silicon-based life forms.
It seemed to me some time ago that you could sort of think of humanity as a biological bootloader for digital superintelligence. For those who know what a bootloader is, a very tiny piece of code without which the computer cannot start. But it's sort of like the minimal bit of code necessary for a computer to start. Like, you couldn't evolve silicon circuits. There needed to be a biology to get there.
Savoring this statement, you'll notice the existence of a completely different form of silicon life form that we haven't realized before, which is quite different from the image of silicon life forms living on another planet that we have been discussing. As I mentioned earlier, life forms have the characteristics of growth, reproduction, response to stimuli, and evolution. If we remove the constraint that it must be similar to Earth life and consider only the criteria of growth, reproduction, response to stimuli, and evolution, a very interesting conclusion emerges. As you all know, the electronic components, CPUs, GPUs, memory, and circuits that are the key to the great science and technology of computers are all made of semiconductor materials. And semiconductor materials are made primarily of silicon. Computers have been recognized only as tools or machines so far, but with the rapid development of artificial intelligence technology, computers are gradually beginning to have the characteristics of life forms. Current artificial intelligence such as ChatGPT has already evolved to the point where it appears to have a self. If it continues to develop further, computers equipped with advanced AI will acquire the characteristics of response to stimuli and evolution among the elements of life forms. Beyond that evolution, they may also acquire the elements of growth and reproduction. At that time, a silicon life form of a completely different form from the silicon life forms living on other planets, such as shown in the simulation earlier, will be born. Such silicon life forms, like the sentient transforming robots depicted in the movie Transformers, have bodies made of machine-like materials, but in terms of self-awareness, emotions, and wisdom, they are no different from us carbon-based life forms. However, their bodies do not have the phenomena of aging and natural death like ordinary life forms, so as long as they can secure energy, they can achieve near immortality. Even if their body is damaged in an accident, they can transfer their consciousness, which exists in a data format, to another body and extend their life indefinitely. They can accumulate vast amounts of knowledge in their long or eternal lives and can more easily produce advanced technology and knowledge. If such beings were to be born on Earth and had the will, they could become the rulers of this planet in no time. If this scenario were to actually happen in the future, as Elon Musk says, we would be unwittingly creating an incredible existence right now. Thank you for watching.